Hi, I'm Val. Welcome to Gossypium Studios. Today we're going to be working on this hand-pieced hexagon table runner. It's still in process, but I want you to join me as we do this together. I hope you have fun. So let's get started. As I said, here is our project that we're going to be making, and I'm only partway finished with this, but I was just too excited not to bring it in and have you all catch up with me and make this. So these are hexagons. They are 2-inch hexagons that I've cut using the laser cut templates that we have here at the shop by So Easy. This packet is fabulous. It has several different sizes in here, and the one that I used is, like I said, the 2-inch one. So let me just set this aside and show you what's so great about these templates. They're already marked with our cutting edge, our sewing line, and points of intersection where our blocks come together in our project. And so I'll be showing you that in more detail later on. The other thing that's great with these templates, I can audition what my block will look like in the finished project simply by placing the template over the design of the fabric. If I move it here, that's a little boring, so I'm going to go here where there are flowers. So I'm just going to take my regular rotary cutter and cut this out on the outside of the cutting line here. So don't adjust your cameras. I am left-handed, so if it looks a little awkward to you, that's why. You can actually spin these around on your mat without having to pick it up to get your cut all the way around if you don't have a rotary circular mat to work with. Okay, once you have your shape cut out, then you're going to mark it. And I use just a regular pencil. I made the mistake of using the friction pen earlier, which I love, but when I pressed it, of course, you know what happens. The lines go away. So I want to use my regular pencil. And it works great on all the colors, even the dark ones. This pencil showed up fine. So what I'm going to do is mark my sewing lines with this pencil. And you can offset your ruler just slightly so that you get that true 1/4 inch. So line it up a 1/4 inch away and draw. Now what you want to see here is as you draw your lines, fully extend out to the edge so that you get your lines crossing, because those marks will become important here shortly, and I'll be sure to show you that too. This is a good thing to do when you're just, watching a movie or something, because you don't have to pay particular attention. You kind of get the rhythm of it, and you can get a bunch of these done and get a whole stack ready to go before you start to put your project together. Okay, so I have my pieces cut and prepared. The lines are drawn on the backs of each of them, and I'm ready to start sewing the rows, or sewing them together in pairs, and then we'll put them together in rows and then assemble them into our table runner. So choose 2 fabrics that you like how they look together. These are fine. They've got a nice contrast. So what I'm going to do is line up those edges. Just one edge is all I need to worry about. And I'm going to take one pin and poke it through. Remember how we paid attention to those drawn lines where they come and intersect. We're going to poke a pin right through that intersection and have it match up on the back. Sometimes I'm lucky and I get it on the first try, but other times you have to just lift it and place it right where it needs to be. The idea being that now you've got these 2 corners lined up perfectly. So then what you can do is just take your pin, slide it through on that stitching line. Don't forget, the drawn line is our stitching line. Okay, so I now have this ready to go. Okay, remember I told you I'm left-handed, so I'm going to start sewing from this left side across. So those of you who are right-handed, you'll probably want to sew from right to left. That will be more natural for you. So what I'm going to do now with my with my needle, is again poke through that intersecting point here and have it match up on the back. Like I said, sometimes I get lucky and it lands, but most of the time I have to place it intentionally right where I want it to go. Okay, and then pull it on through. Now when I first start to sew here, don't pull it too hard, because remember our cute little knot, we don't want it to pop through. It's strong enough to hold on its own. I take my next stitch pretty close to where I started, almost as if it's a knot that I'm securing that little corner with as we get started. Sometimes it doesn't work out when you want it to. There we go. Okay, so now I'm back on the top, pretty close to where I started, right here at that corner. Then what you're going to do is just hold this loosely in your hand and load some stitches onto your needle. I usually do about 2 or 3 stitches at a time, and they don't have to be super tight, but pretty close together, if y'all can see that. And then before you pull your needle through, check on the back side that it's lined up on that sewing line that you've sewn on the back, that you've drawn on the back side as well, and then pull it through. Then before you move forward, what we're going to do is take a little back stitch. So just pop back in behind where this thread came out. We're going to pop back behind there and take one little stitch, and now continue loading 2 or 3 stitches onto your needle. Check the back side, make sure you're happy. Oh, that looks good. And then pull it on through. Again, take a little back stitch. This just builds a little extra security in your seam, so things won't pop out. Still looking good. Once you take the time to line it up well, it usually works out pretty easily for matching up those sewing lines from the front to the back. Okay, now as you get close to that corner, what you're going to do, and you'll find what works best for you, but what I find I do is I pull out that pin just slightly, back it up, and pop it back in again. Always check the back side to make sure everybody's behaving back there. Take your little back stitch and then proceed. Then once you load a couple more stitches, you can actually take your pin out from the stitch line, but keep it there in the corner and push it on through just to keep it all together. Stitch about 2 or 3 stitches. Pull it on through after you've checked. Yay, we're still good. And now I'm to my corner, so I'm going to pull out the pin, and I should be able to land right there in the corner. Looking good. Okay, now I'm not going to trust that that's going to be perfect, so I'm going to poke through that intersection one more time. Check it on the back, and again, it's not quite perfect how I want it to be, so I'm going to separate the two and pop it right into place. Okay, that looks good. Then on the back side, I'm going to take a little tiny stitch here to create a knot. We're going to tie this off. So you can just take a little stitch right at that intersection, make a loop, and poke your needle through the loop right before you get to the end there, and do that a couple of times to secure that seam. Oh, wouldn't you know? Very last thing. There we go. Okay, now we have that first seam stitched, and let's take a peek. Ta-da! Now you'll notice that our ends are loose. These are for Y seams, and we're going to do a little bit of work with that a little bit in just a moment. Okay, once you have your pieces all put together, you're going to end up with rows. And so now we're going to join the rows together, and we will be dealing with some Y seams here, but don't be afraid. I'll show you a quick and easy way to do those things, because our goal is that they all come together. All these intersecting points come together nice and crisply, and we can do that quite easily by hand piecing, because it's a slow and controlled method of sewing. So what we're going to do now is line up your rows. So I'm going to put these two together. Let's get this out of the way. We're going to put these two rows together, and I'm going to start sewing here and here. I just want to show you how we are going to do that Y seam right here. So we're going to flip these right sides together, and our first stitch line is going to be right across here. So I'm just going to do what I did before and take a pin and poke right through that intersection and go right back here to this one here. And then if I'm happy with how they line up, secure that pin right along the stitching line, just like we did before. Check the back to make sure it behaved. It looks good. Can y'all see that? Okay, now with my thread, I'm going to poke through the front here to the back once again, and they didn't line up well, so I've got to place that white fabric right where I need it to be. Take an extra little stitch right there at the beginning, and away we go, right along that stitching line with our few stitches forward and then a back stitch. Checking the front and the back to make sure I'm happy with it. Get the little cootie threads out of there. Looking good. Okay, now I've gotten close to that pin, so again I'm going to back it out just a little bit, just to give myself a little bit more room to travel along that sewing line. And then when I get close enough, I'm just going to keep it right in there, but take it off the drawn line there. Come into the corner. Now, how we deal with this corner now is going to be a little bit different than what we did before. So I'm going to pull out that pin, and what we're going to do is join up these three pieces here. So what it's going to be like is going through an intersection. So we're going to go straight, back to the side, back toward me, and then back this way. So we're basically making a little box to pull in all of those corners together. So it'll make sense here in just a minute as you watch me. I'll talk us through it. So I'm going to poke from front to back of those two pieces right through that mark again. And now I'm going to join this corner here to the back side of this corner here by poking through there and then placing this corner on my needle. Come on. There we go. Do you see that? So I've gone from the back side to the front on this second piece here. And now I'm going to go back through to where I started. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like from this side. Okay, so this corner is now pulled in nice and secure. Now I'm ready to sew this seam to here. So now I'm going to flip it back over and just continue on, lining up a pin to this corner, to the back side. Once you do a few of these, it really becomes a fun, easy project. And I love the pace of it so that you can really just enjoy kind of the accuracy that it provides with going slowly. Because sometimes Y seams can be tricky if you've not done them before. And this is a really nice way to get the result that you're hoping for. Okay, now I'm coming back through this way, and now I'm just going to stitch right along this line. So join me in just a second and I'll show you once I get that one done. Okay, last stitch. We got it. All right, so now let me show you what that finished Y seam and joining those two sides looks like. So we joined them here. We've got that nice crisp corner. And then once you get them all stitched together and your project is complete, you can press these. And let me just show you what I ended up doing with my little sample here. This is not nearly complete yet. I'm going to keep adding on to it. But I pressed my seams open on the back just so that I could really make sure that those points end up just how I want them to be. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I've encouraged you to try hand piecing. You'll find all of these beautiful fabrics on our website. If you're hoping to search for them, you can look under the designer tab of Art Gallery Fabrics, Sharon Holland. And all of the products that I used today are available on our website, gossipiumquilt.com. There'll be a link below for you to check it out. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you next time.